I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided at DC Sports Podcast. More specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is K-Dot. And before we begin this episode, which is the Commanders week that was, and is Caleb Williams still in play for the Washington Commanders? If you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do. Massive comment mailbag today. And K-Dot?
Share this shit. Become a District Divided evangelist. Share the good word.
Share the good word. And of course, if you haven't seen Dune 2 yet, what are you doing? But why don't we go ahead?
Lost cause.
Maybe we'll total lost cause. But why don't we go ahead and get into the purpose of this episode, which is to quickly recap the news for you guys, talk about the Caleb Williams stuff, and then we're just going to get into the comment mailbag, honestly, because there wasn't that much news, K-Dot. So the week that was, we signed 3 corners. Okay, we signed Michael Davis, 1-year deal, it looks like. We signed Noah Igbinoghene. Another 1-year deal. I'm just glad I nailed that. Comes from Dallas.
I'm just going to call him Noah.
Most famous for, he scored the Cowboys' first touchdown last season on the blocked kick against the New York Giants. And then James Pierre, another corner. So 3 corners that we signed. And then we re-signed Cornelius Lucas, who now is the projected starter at left tackle. So, K-Dot, those are the 4 moves. What did you make of them? Any of them move the needle for you at all?
Move the needle now. Well, all right. Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
Cornelius Lucas moved the needle a little bit in the sense of like what he started 4 games for us last year. I was looking through, I was going through his starts, and it started with, and I was looking, I immediately looked at the starts, clicked, went to the box score, and started looking at the amount of sacks. And when I saw 5 sacks in the first game, I just gave up on looking at the rest of the box score stats. But I always felt when he was playing, at least to me, because you remember the sacks a lot with Sam Howell was the play calling, and Sam just holding on the goddamn football.
Yes.
But I remember there were times where Lucas was starting where I kind of liked what I saw. Am I excited that he looks like he's the starting left tackle next year, like right now? No, that doesn't excite me. But I like the idea of having somebody that has familiarity with us, a dude that I have really liked in certain spots. I love the idea of getting depth, and then Lord knows I won't have a full ruling on what I think about any roster spot until the draft is over, right?
Right.
But so like the Cornelius Lucas, we'll see what happens with the draft. But even if it's like worst case scenario, the guy's not ready and we got to start him, the world's not over. Where it was like I was looking and there was no left tackle, right? So like, at least that is something that gets cleared off again as far as on the roster list as far as needs. And then the defensive backs, now none of them move the needle necessarily for me. I do like that when I'm hearing some of these names, I'm hearing like, all right, they're good special teams guys. So I like the we're doing that. We're getting what is Larry Izzo some is it Larry Izzo?
Yeah, Larry Izzo. And we've actually targeted some special teamers, like specific special teamers, which does feel far removed from the past.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I always go back to this. There's I know I've talked about it numerous times. I know you probably still haven't watched it, but there's a secret base video about the 2010 San Diego Chargers being like the greatest team ever, but they missed the playoffs. And if you look at the reason they missed the playoffs, it was special teams, which is like that is something that a lot of people overlook. And it's really, really important in the game. You look at like those Patriots dynasty or whatever, you can always see Matthew Slater. They always had guys that really performed well in special teams. So I like that. But more than anything, I love depth. I like when you look at this, if you're looking at this coaching staff overall, the strength that you would say for them more than any other thing would be the ability to coach defensive backs. So the more bodies you got there, the more people you can rotate in and out, and the more people that have maybe shown flashes at certain points in their career that might get the best out of them with this coaching staff. I'm all for it. Just give them more bodies.
Yeah, on the field, I think none of these move the needle for me, just like you had mentioned. It is good to have the depth. It is good that we are targeting specific special teamers. We have also gotten Anthony Pittman. We talked about him a little bit last episode. Tyler Ott, 3-year deal. He's now a long snapper that we feel we can trust, work with Izzo in the past. So we're really focused on that stuff. And of course, Brandon McManus is going to be the new kicker, with Joey Sly, funnily enough, going the other way to Jacksonville. So they basically just swap where they're kicking, which is fine. The one that moved the needle for me, but for a slightly different reason, was Michael Davis's signing, because the team announced it first, then the reporters did, and within 30 seconds, he's got his intro presser. And so it was very cool to go, literally no one saw it coming. And now he's already speaking to people. And so it was very cool to know that, hey, we have really kept stuff under wraps. I think it was sort of proven with the coaching search that, hey, they are not letting anything out of the building. They are not letting anything out of the building with some of these signings, so something could pop up out of nowhere. I still want Stephon Gilmore, just to be clear, because I do think it would still help with the development of the younger guys in this type of system. 1-year deal. We have the cap space for it. I would like to see it. We'll see if it happens. But that was the one that moved it for me. And to your point on Cornelius Lucas, I think he's fine for left tackle. Right. Do we want something better? We do. But is it also fine for the time being? Yes. And we still have healthy cap this year, next year, the year after. We got the draft picks. So like you said, reserve judgment until after the draft, which is fast approaching. It's just about a month away over here. Any final thoughts on the moves before we move on to Caleb?
No, not necessarily. I thought I had a thought. That thought went away.
All right. And maybe it will come back. But why don't we go ahead and move on? So
no, it's gone.
USC had their pro day. And just before that, Justin Fields was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, making room for a starting quarterback in Chicago, who, of course, have the #1 pick, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers from the trade last season that netted Carolina Bryce Young.
Right.
So here we are. We are now in a position where Ryan Poles, the GM for the Chicago Bears, has made the move. Justin Fields is gone. And presumably, Caleb Williams will be their quarterback as of right now. But the question is this. So now that it is known that Chicago wants a QB, are they willing to move off of that #1 pick, let's say? Or are they maybe looking at a Jayden Daniels or a Drake Maye? Is it a lock that they are going to get Caleb Williams, K-Dot? Or is Caleb Williams still in play for us? We saw Adam Peters, of course, at the pro day, Dan Quinn at the pro day. They will be at other ones too, with Michigan, with LSU, with UNC. But is it a lock that Caleb Williams is going to be a Chicago Bear? Do you feel Caleb Williams is still in play?
Do I think it's a lock? No. I don't think anything's a lock necessarily when it comes to the draft. I would say that
betting odds seem to think it's a lock.
Well, that's the thing. If I were to bet any money on it, that's the one I'd bet on, right? So like the word out of the pro day for Caleb Williams was he didn't do anything too spectacular. But I think that was sort of what it is they were trying to accomplish with the pro day. From what I've read, it was more about like everyone knows the flashy plays that Caleb Williams can do, the off schedule stuff that Caleb Williams can do. But this is more about getting back to fundamentals and just showing people that like, yeah, he's fundamentally sound at the quarterback position. Yeah. So I think if that's the case, okay. I know that everybody saw the Caleb Williams like hugging Adam Peters and everything. Oh my God, what's happening with that? The only thing that I don't know is what anyone's true intentions are with anything at this point, which is where you get into this period, right? Usually I would think that most teams already know who it is they're going to pick if they're going to pick in that top 3, right? Like everybody kind of knows who it is they're going to do. I'd say for Washington's a wild card in the sense of just what you talked about in this last segment. No one knows what we're doing. That's the only constant is that no one knows at any given point what we're doing. If you look at any mock drafts, it's pretty much split between Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye. So the idea would be that I think Washington or everyone else, if you believe everything you're reading, right? But if you believe going into this draft that Caleb Williams is absolutely the #1 guy, then maybe you're at a point where you look at Washington, you look at New England, and they're like, we're not in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. We're cool with, we're making the best out of whatever's out next. The Chicago piece of it, which I know what you asked about primarily, it's weird. So like the Justin Fields, the Pittsburgh thing, if you look at the compensation, everything that they got, it's like, it was kind of surprising to me in the sense of how little as they got. Shit, we were looking at the end of last season. I was saying that I'd be willing to move a 2nd-round pick for him, right? Yeah. So like, then there's the idea that like the longer it went, the worse his value got, right? And then you have the story that came out that it's like they try to do Fields a solid in sending him somewhere that he wanted to go, which I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know. I keep hearing how good Ryan Poles is as far as a GM. I haven't seen anything that's blown me away at all so far. So the thing with me is that like if Chicago was completely solidified on the Caleb Williams thing, did they take a chance in thinking that Fields's value was going to go up? So they were going to hold on to him. I feel as though if you know you're going to do the Caleb Williams thing, you move on from Justin Fields immediately after the season's over.
I think they botched it, to be totally honest. I think that's what happens because that can happen, right? So Ryan Poles, I think, gets a lot of credit for last year's trade, right? Because now you have the number 1 pick again. You can stockpile more if you keep Fields. So like they think of it that way and they go, man, like what a great job. Look at all these picks. But
asterisk, it was the Carolina Panthers.
Correct.
It's like when you want to trade against Dan Snyder.
He got a temper boost. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like,
but the thing is that I think they are very much locked in on Caleb Williams. I would be very surprised if they weren't. And that to me, K-Dot, I've said it before. I think it's good news. I think it's good that Caleb does not come here. We've both sort of said that. And then when I listened to, I'm being very nitpicky here. I was curious as to what you thought. If you've heard Caleb Williams like speak to the media before or anything like that. He's an interesting guy. It's not necessarily conventional the way that he speaks to the media. It's nothing wrong about it. I just noticed it. I don't know if
I adore dude. Like the thing is that like I've always been a fan of his. Like as soon as you start hearing everyone hears
he's like a quirky guy.
He paints his finger. You remember the
very
like
quirky guy. It comes out right? Even when he's speaking to the media. Yeah,
he does his GQ thing where it's like the 10 things I always have to have on me stuff. His was interesting as hell. He's really into ginger beer. Like it's the whole thing. Like I love as a dude. I'm wearing white glasses with a nose ring. I like quirky. Like,
why do you think I asked you?
Right. So like, there is an element like and I've been so like I as a avid YouTube watcher, even though this guy is not necessarily as popular as he used to be and got canceled. David Dobrik, who had one of the biggest YouTube pages, Caleb would kind of be in the background at some of the USC parties and everything else. He's always been an interesting dude. There's a little bit of Hollywood flair to him, but like a weird, quirky Hollywood flair. Which to me almost speaks even strongly to my whole thing when it comes to like for his own benefit, not necessarily coming here. I almost think that he fits into a category kind of onto himself, where I just don't think he's going to have the same issues that other guys have, because it doesn't seem like his circles of the people he keeps around him are the same as most dudes do. If they're at that level from a football standpoint, he's one of those dudes that kind of stuff. It's like Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a different kind of cat, right? Like he's just right. So it's like, I think Caleb was more in that category.
The one thing I'm thinking about. So just to answer the question that I played out, I do not think Caleb Williams is in play, and I'm glad about it because the only thing, I think he's an immense talent. But when I speak about the quirky nature of things, I wonder if things aren't going his way early, just generally speaking, is he going to be able to show enough of the leadership traits to be able to like. I remember the RG3 stuff, for example. Like when we were winning, it was awesome. Everyone rocked with him. And the moment we didn't, like it was just, RG3 was also sort of a weird guy. And like it just all of a sudden things were like, oh, they don't really vibe together, stuff like that. Caleb is a very unique individual. It's a very nitpicky thing, just to be clear. It is incredibly nitpicky, but it is a thought that comes to mind for me.
So to provide some insight as far as the RG3 thing, and then I'm going to go back to the Caleb in the Chicago piece in a bit. I have my best friend. I think I've talked about it. My best friend went to Baylor with RG3. And she, I didn't know her in 2012. But when I talked to her, when I did know her after RG3 and his career was over here, this is like 2 years after the RG3's gone from Washington. And she's telling me stories about stuff that would happen in Baylor compared to other stories that I heard that happened with RG3 here. It's a different kind of weird. So like it's a socially awkward, trying too hard guy. You can see it in RG3 now. I like RG3. But you can see in the social media stuff and everything, he's trying really hard to be likable. He's trying really hard to do this, that, and the other. I hate to do this. RG3, Russell Wilson are kind of in the same category. In the sense of dudes are kind of looked. Everybody remembers the Cornball Brotherhood thing
yes.
that Rob Parker. There is an element of RG3 that's just sort of like, huh. Now, I always say he's one tweet away from basically being Tiki fucking Barber. Okay, like he's one tweet away from fucking it all up. There's a fine line he needs to walk, and he gets close. He dangles his feet right across the line every once in a while, but it's a different sort of thing. The Caleb Williams, as far as from a leadership standpoint, I think I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that realm. I think he's
no, actually, everything we've heard has been positive.
Yeah, it's positive.
Just to be clear,
the RG3 stuff is just you can hear certain things he's doing. It almost feels as though everything he does is a calculated move.
Sure.
And there's an inauthenticity. See that in the same thing, let's say with Russell Wilson.
I think it's different to lead college players when you're that immensely talented versus when you get to the pros.
I don't think it's leading.
The talent gap decreases.
I don't think it's so. That's the thing. It's like the leadership traits, right? Just being good in college, you might have people that'll be like, all right, well, I ain't gonna fuck with this dude, or I ain't gonna try to say anything to rock the boat if we're gonna have success behind him or whatever.
Right.
Then there's like Joe Burrow in what he was doing for LSU. You know, he was the leader in that fucking team. Yeah. There's leadership is leadership at any fucking level. Some guys, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. You don't have to be a rah-rah guy. You could be a lead by example guy. You could be a quiet guy. You could be the dude that barely says anything, but you know when he does say something, everybody pipes up and they listen because it's usually something profound. I'm not sure exactly who Caleb is on that end, but the Chicago piece, before we get off of this, the reason I would say it's the closest to a lock for Chicago is that I don't think Ryan Poles, if we think that he fucked up the Justin Fields thing, I don't think he can afford not to take Caleb.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
It's just like if Caleb ends up, everyone knows going into this draft, he's the lock at one. If he does something different and Caleb goes and shines in any sort of way, shape, or fashion, you are done, bro. Like you will never be able
unless
to
your QB is as good or close to as good. Yeah.
Then you are donezo. Now, I will say I don't know if they hated Justin Fields or they just learned from their mistakes because he's got whoever's going there got a much better setup than Justin did when he was first rolling in. But overall, I just think it'd be too risky for Ryan and everyone in there's jobs not to draft Caleb Williams at this point.
Fair enough. All right. And so why don't we go ahead and go to the comment mailbag because there's a lot to get to, 1, 2, and all these comments go all over the place. So we'll be able to touch any number of topics. Guys, we have about 30. And so we're going to go ahead and zoom through them, but we are reading each and every one of them because we thoroughly appreciate it. So thank you guys. We're going to go ahead and begin with Yogi659.
Can I ask everybody a question? And now that we're getting the comments of this level, and hopefully it stays like this, I just want to know, would people prefer a mailbag episode weekly, maybe? And then we could just throw it out there. Just want to see what everybody's preference.
Feel free to chime in the mailbag. And so we begin with Yogi659. HTTR, new sub. Keep up the good work, my guys. Thoroughly appreciate the comment and the love there, Yogi659. Shout out. Appreciate it. And so that's where we begin. Yeah. And so then we go over to Vindo. Shout out Vindo. OG. Fun fact, Justin Simmons is from Nova. Come home, Justin. Come home. As of right now, I do not believe Justin Simmons is signed anywhere. I haven't seen it. And I feel like that's a big enough name that we would see if he is signed somewhere. So it's still on the board because if we go over to Thanos for Life, shout out, we still have $55 million in cap space. We are not done yet. And 8 different people like that comment. So everyone is thinking, hey, we want more. We want more over here. And so it is possible still that a Justin Simmons or a Stephon Gilmore or, whomever that you want can come here depending on what the front office wants to do. Do you anticipate any big signings here, K-Dot?
Usually not at this point, but I also, once again, going back to, I don't know what it is they're cooking up in Ashburn right now.
Right.
No idea.
Right. We go over to Lou Google 5530. Shout out. Still need.
What's his name?
His name is Lou Google.
Is that a Hot Tub Time Machine reference?
Could
Google?
be.
Oh, all right.
Lou Google 5530. Shout out. Still need tight end. Unless Armani Rogers and what's his name step up big time. There's, I guess, Cole Turner. There's John Bates. Those are some of the guys. And, of course, we signed Zach Ertz. Still need tight end, left tackle, and cornerback especially. And since then, of course, we have signed 3 corners. 2 of them seem to be, so that would be Noah Igbinoghene and James Pierre seem to be specific to special teams. but I wouldn't be surprised to see them get some reps at corner, obviously. And then there's Michael Davis, who I believe will be playing some corner for the squad. So we'll see what happens. As you said, none of us really know, but there's plenty of time left still.
You're looking at two positions that we thought of as sort of positions that were ones to watch that could be really exciting to watch a season ago.
Yes.
Then there's the factor of how undercoached they were, especially a defensive back. There might be a situation where this coaching staff looks at tight end and looks at defensive back and say, there's a lot more talent than these guys got coached last year, and maybe we're okay with them.
Yep. And then we go over to Gary Hartridge 803. Shout out Gary Hartridge. The Commanders were one-upping themselves with every signing they've made. Best offseason I've experienced ever. K-Dot, is this the best offseason you have experienced ever?
It's probably the healthiest good offseason I've experienced ever. I still can't top Joe Gibbs coming back. I'll never forget that feeling. Because you heard the stories and everybody, like, being a young fan in that era, back in middle school, coming out of middle school, going to high school, and you're like, yo, this dude's the god. And then at that point, I was a NASCAR fan, so I've been watching Joe Gibbs racing and Tony Stewart and all those dudes. So yeah, I will never be able to top that as far as from a feeling standpoint. But that being said, this feels healthier than that. This feels like something new and something that'll be sustained for quite some time.
I would agree. This is the healthiest offseason. And if I'm thinking about best, it probably is. Just because it is the healthiest. We do have long-term stability as well from a cap perspective and picks. So far, I think it is. I agree with you, Gary Hartridge. The best offseason I have also experienced. Being a fan of this team for, oh my gosh, 26, 27 years. Something like that when I watched my first game. Yeah, 27 years ago. That's crazy. We go over to McTrayer. Shout out McTrayer. Sign a tackle and can then draft best player available. Okay, got it. So you sign a left tackle and then you can draft best player available after quarterback at 2. And of course, we re-signed Cornelius Lucas for the time being. He is the projected starter at left tackle. Curious if they take a second quarterback late in the draft with Peter's history of drafting QBs late often. So like Brock Purdy, of course, is the prime example of that.
Right.
Do you see them taking a second quarterback late in the draft, K-Dot?
I don't have a problem with it. Was Jake Fromm still on the team now? So like I don't know what they think of him. Once again, just don't know. But like if they were to sign a second quarterback, I have absolutely no problem with that, knowing the plethora of picks we do have.
Yeah, I would actually say don't. Unless they're super high on a guy in like the 7th round. I would say don't. I would say fill out the special teams again, like with the later picks, some depth. I think that stuff is much more important, and really put your eggs in the basket with the number 2 pick. And if you'll know by the end of this coming season whether you fully believe in the guy or not. You'll know that. And so if you want a later round QB next year, cool. But not this year. Don't I wouldn't do that.
The only thing I'd say to that is I think it goes going based off that comment. I was going off of, if you think the best player available is a quarterback, do it. And like that's my take, is like the idea, knowing, especially like you look at last season, the amount of quarterback injuries that ripped through the league. It's nuts. And the idea that like you're not guaranteed to have anybody be healthy for any long period of time. If they do a good job developing one and they can do a good job developing 2, that to me is just the idea of getting draft capital back later on is fine by me. Best player available is best player available. I don't give a shit about the position.
We go back to Gary Hartridge again. Appreciate the comment here, Gary. The Commander front office is so on point. They created a quarterback room for the 2nd overall pick with a quarterback room that contains a 2nd overall pick. Of course, that speaks to, and appreciate the comment there, Gary, the Marcus Mariota signing, right? And there are some comments coming up about whether he should start, whether he should, be the backup to the number 2 overall pick, assuming it is a quarterback. So we'll get to that. But yes, we've got a number 2 overall pick, and presumably we'll take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, maybe a Heisman Trophy winner as well. We go to French 0103, preseason hype once again. Entirely possible. Maybe we are overestimating this offseason. It's possible. None of the games have been played yet. But to K-Dot's point earlier, this is certainly the healthiest offseason. So even if it doesn't go well, again, we got enough cap space to kind of do this again if we really wanted to and get better veterans. But it's hard to argue better veterans than Bobby Wagner, than, Zach Ertz, than Austin Eckler, guys that have had success in their careers. So we'll see what happens. But K-Dot, your thoughts preseason hype once again?
Once again, tempered expectations, but the overall, my thought process is, yes, there is nothing they have done that I've disagreed with. This is all benchmarks of the way that you're supposed to build a team. And that to me is like what Adam Peters said, as far as long sustained success and what it is they're looking for. I'm not looking for a fucking playoff team next year. I don't give a shit about that. What I'm looking for is that they're putting the building blocks together to build something sustainable and good.
Yes.
That gives us a chance to be a contender for years and years to come. So like, as long as they are moving in that direction, I'm all fucking good with it. I just want to see development.
Yeah, fair enough. I am right there with you. And I suspect we will. I think we've talked about these moves being floor raisers, and I do believe our floor has been raised. So I think we should be a competitive team, which is what they have said we will be, from the jump. And I do believe this team will be competitive in the games that they play, which is great.
My only benchmark is we shouldn't be selecting second overall next year.
Yeah. Yeah, that and keeping games close. I'll even point to the Arizona Cardinals with I believe his name's Jonathan Gannon. Is that right? Their head coach. Immediately competitive to me.
Played hard.
I see that culture and I go, you know what? This group has bought in. They did not get the results they wanted, but damn it, they're going to be a tough out. I mean, Dallas figured that out when they went to Arizona. We figured it out week 1. We almost lost, right, to what was supposed to be the worst team in the NFL. They outperformed that. So that's sort of what I'm looking for, that type of mold.
The other example I give is the Detroit Lions when Dan Campbell first got
Campbell.
There
you go.
It's you when you watch a team and you realize, okay, the talent's not there, but god damn, them dudes are playing hard.
That's us. That's what we want to be this year.
Right.
We go over to Heaven 1189. Shout out. Mariota was a genius pickup. If y'all know football, Commanders' new offensive coordinator is former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury, right? So he's worked with Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, who are dual threats. Marcus Mariota is a beast, and even if they draft someone at 2, the rookie will not do anything his first NFL season. So this is a Mariota believer. This is somebody that goes, okay, start the season with Mariota, maybe play the entire season with Marcus Mariota. K-Dot, you had a couple chuckles there. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Who said this? Heaven 11?
Heaven 1189.
Heaven 11.
I'm guessing the 89 is the Santana Moss reference.
Or birth year. Which I'm an 89, baby.
That's true.
It could be. You starting off the comment with "if you know football" and then telling us about Cliff Kingsbury being in Arizona is, I don't know what that is.
I just read the comments.
And then also, look, I don't dislike Marcus Mariota, and I'm completely cool with him starting as we get into these comments about him. But to say that he's a beast might be a little much. Like, there's a reason he's here for the contract.
The only thing, right? And so the main pushback I would have is I don't think Marcus Mariota thinks Marcus Mariota is a beast, and so that's the main issue. I would be willing to buy it if Mariota was like talking mad shit and was like, "Yeah, I'm that dude, and now I'm where I need to be. About damn time." I'm going, okay, maybe he is, but I don't think he believes that. We'll see.
Dude, one of my favorite things about football is the psychology of a quarterback room and the dudes that you need in certain places. Sometimes, depending on who you have, you need somebody with irrational confidence. Sometimes what you need is a trusted, wily veteran that understands his place in this league. I'm hoping Marcus Mariota is part of that wily veteran that knows his fucking place in the league.
I'm not gonna lie, I want a little irrational confidence in the guy. But then we go over to user SC4A7EI3W shout out, and it's a very quick comment. Yoda is the starter? Hell no. So you've already seen a difference of opinion between the two. We've got Heaven 1189 calling Mariota a beast, a dual threat QB, which is true. He is a dual threat QB. And then we've got user SC4EH7EI3W going Mariota is the starter? Hell no. There we are. We go over to John Donnie 443. O-line. Shout out. Totally agree. We need to build the offensive line. I am over and over and over again on record saying I don't want the number 2 overall pick starting behind a line I don't trust, because I want him to develop confidence. And to do that, you need to be standing upright more often than not. That's where I stand. K-Dot, O-line, O-line, O-line.
O-line, build the trenches. I think they've done right now, just based on free agency and who we've had on the roster. Defensive line looks pretty built the way I wanted it to. Maybe you find somebody you could draft you really liked as a good edge rusher. But offensive line is where I'm looking at and being like, if the first mark of your team is to build the trenches, there's still work to be done. But I think a lot of it can be done in this draft.
We go over to Hibiscus 779. We have to draft 2 tackles. There you go. So we're still on the offensive line. We cannot take Caleb without keeping at least 1 second-round pick, where we must take a tackle at a bare minimum. So it sounds like Hibiscus 779. It sounds like you want Caleb Williams. It sounds like that involved in a trade, you want to keep one of the second-round picks so that pick 1 is Caleb and the second rounder is a tackle. Which would, hey, I would not complain about that. You know, it would be exciting to have Caleb Williams here in DC and draft a left tackle in the second round. It is a deep offensive line class this year. K-Dot, what do you make of that? Drafting 2 tackles.
I'm good with it as long as the best players available. I mean, once again, we talked about the offensive line still need to be built up. And look, there's not a single part of me that wouldn't be over the fucking moon with Caleb Williams in the burgundy and gold. Like,
yeah.
He's the easiest guy for me to root for.
Well, why don't we go over to a couple quick comments on that subject? One from Spanky Delaney, 3801. Y'all about to get fleeced. Bear down. So they clearly want to trade the pick and fleece us in the process. And then there's Dougie P41. A trade with the Bears is coming after Caleb's pro day and physical. Book it. These comments are starting to just sort of flow together a little bit.
Were these comments before Justin Fields went to Pittsburgh?
This was 6 days ago, yes. And so here we are.
See what they're feeling now.
Yeah. Please chime back in. We go over to Anthony Orman, 596. Shout out Anthony Orman. And shout out the previous 2 seemingly either Bears fans or I think Dougie P41 is a Commanders fan. Trade with Bears is coming after Caleb Pro Day. I think that is like hey, we're going to do this. But we go over to Anthony Orman, 596. Think the Dan Quinn hiring was definitely a blessing in disguise for real. These guys love him. The guys we got came because of him and his staff. Peters looks like a rock star so far. I'm really excited for the draft after killing it in free agency in a very smart, focused way. Adam Peters has gone about free agency, and I'm still holding out hope we get Caleb Williams. But if we stay pat at 2 and take Jayden Daniels, I'd be perfectly fine with that. As long as one of them are the future franchise QB, we've gone too long without one. Hail to the Commanders, baby. And that is the comment over there, K-Dot. So Dan Quinn hiring, blessing in disguise. I think you were pretty hip to it pretty early on. Yeah. And Adam Peters has had a really good offseason so far. Would prefer Caleb Williams, but if we have Jayden Daniels at pick 2, also happy so long as he's the guy.
I think I would go back and I think Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback in this draft. I do not have strong inklings either way about the other 3 guys, May, Daniels, McCarthy. Mm-hmm. I'd be cool with any of them. I'm just more in line with what the development process looks like for them than anything.
Complete agreement over here from your co-host, K-Dot. We go at 7PRS965. Shout out. What happens next year with all these 1-year deals expiring? And so, of course, the immediate answer is they're no longer on the team, but it is also a bit of a trial period for a lot of the guys too. So we talked about bringing in London Fletcher at the age that we brought him in, and we didn't know how long that was truly going to be, regardless of contract length, because you just don't know how much juice is left. If Bobby Wagner shows a lot of juice, people rally around him, and we want him here for the long term, I think that's a strong possibility that is an example of a 1-year deal that gets extended for maybe multiple years. It's possible. I'm not saying it does happen, but it's a possibility. Austin Eckler's got it too, so not him. Zach Ertz, maybe he has a productive year. It continues. But really, the 1-year deal allows you to build a culture, to develop leadership and chemistry, and then from there have the flexibility to choose to bring back certain guys or let others go. K-Dot, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. It's if the contracts expire and they didn't do great here, it didn't work out, they get to walk and we ain't got to pay them anything else. More than anything, what it also allows is to have leadership that can help develop whoever the young talent is to potentially take over that job for them in the following year. You also have a situation where if you look at this particular roster of coaches and you look around the league at some of the teams that do the best job as far as coaching goes, you have a lot of guys that are veterans that might move into positions of coaching. Like you have all these dudes. When you have these dudes here on the 1 year deals, it just offers you the ultimate flexibility. I don't think anyone is of the idea that these guys who willingly came here for this money, where they could potentially have gone somewhere else, wouldn't be of the idea that if they were to ball out and wanted to be back, they wouldn't get re-signed.
Right.
And if they ball out completely, that they would be like, fuck this, I'm going to go somewhere else. I just don't see it in the character of the dudes that we have who brought them in.
I would completely agree with that. And then we go over to C Drags 56. Shout out. Washington and the Raiders are rising up from the ashes. K-Dot, do you have a Raiders take for us?
So the other podcast that I used to do, because Lord knows we ain't doing an episode in a minute.
Shout out ASOS.
Shout out ASOS. One of my co-hosts is a Raiders fan, and he's one of those annoying Raiders
James.
fans. So there's always a fuck the Raiders mentality that I got just because of him and how annoying he is in the group text thread with Raiders shit that we don't care about. But there's always going to be a part of me that with what it is they did with Antonio Pierce and how much I love Antonio Pierce as a dude, even though I got a little weird with him in Washington at the end with the New York Giants stuff, but I think that was more to do with ownership of coaching. I am secretly rooting for them to succeed. I just haven't necessarily seen a whole lot on paper other than finding a good motivator that makes me believe that they're truly turning.
It was cool. So clearly the players love him, especially Max Crosby, for example, who went as far as to say, I will walk away from this team if you don't hire Antonio Pierce full-time. Like that was, he's definitely a player's coach. He is a player in the league. They showed a lot of juice last season. They got Christian Wilkins. You're in a giggly mood today.
Every time Max Crosby comes up, I think he looks like a Sons of Anarchy character that likes to say the N-word in his personal time.
I'm not going to rule that out, just to be totally honest. I could see it.
Max with 2 X's is a move. It's a move.
They call him Mad Max, right?
He should be. Like if he's not, that's just
he looks like he'd be in Mad Max as well, just as is.
He should have been. Like if he's not in the
he could have just
movie,
been there in his 98 Raiders uniform, and they'd be like, okay, cool. That's just
works.
Another character. Yeah, absolutely.
Works.
That guy is so good. I'm curious to see. I am curious to see Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson, Christian Wilkins all on the same defensive line. I think that is exciting if you're a Raiders fan. They lost Josh Jacobs. Alex Madison is now there. We'll end up seeing what happens.
I love crazy defensive ends. I love wily, crazy pass rushers, like the Jared Allens. I like those guys. I've always rooted for them.
Yeah. And then we go over to Earl Bruce. That's an OG right there. Shout out Earl Bruce. I hope whatever quarterback is drafted sits and learns. I don't believe in throwing rookie quarterbacks to the wolves. Amen, Earl. Amen. You and me both, buddy, and I believe K-Dot's in the same boat as well. Yeah? Yes? No?
It should be tattooed on me. Like
Perfect.
As much as there's a Bucky, I want to mention that there's a Bucky Brooks who's an NFL analyst. He did an article a few days ago. I don't know if it was for Fox Sports or NFL or wherever. If I could find it, I'll send it to you, or maybe we'll drop a link down there.
Yeah.
But he's talking because I know me and you, I've gone so far as the quarterback thing that sometimes me and you have been at odds about how much I want these guys to just sit, right?
Yep.
He did a full breakdown of quarterback bust and how much experience you need in college to determine your bust factor.
Okay.
As well as the success rate and all. It was very interesting. And the reason I probably found it more interesting than anything else is it just solidified every point I've ever had about it. Which is great. But
like a little confirmation bias, please.
100%. But the idea is if you're looking at, you want to look at how much experience these guys have had in college, but then beyond that, if they haven't had that level of experience at the college level, how important it is, vital to them to sit. Yeah. It is vital to them to sit. There was an argument that Bomani Jones was getting into on Twitter, and it's a fundamental thing for me. There's an idea that when it comes to these quarterback busts, and I hate that label bust because of who's responsible for it. it is a much bigger developmental issue than an evaluation issue when it comes to quarterback lack of success in the first round of the NFL draft.
I would completely agree. So here's the thing, K-Dot, that I don't think we mention all the time. So a lot of these quarterbacks are used to, I don't know about winning, but they're used to being the best player on the field at the very least, because they're being drafted. So clearly, they're legit. And a lot of them are used to winning. And a lot of them are used to, I don't know, a certain type of culture, right? That comes with winning. And they are going to teams that do not really have that necessarily. So when you throw them out immediately into that situation, they're adjusting to NFL life. They're already in a place that doesn't win. And they are given all the responsibility for turning the thing around. And patience is at an all-time low in the league, in the world. It applies everywhere. So you want to see how they handle adversity, but you can also control to an extent how much adversity they have to go through. And so your goal is to minimize the risk or the adversity for that player and let them overcome just stuff on the field. Let them take care of the other stuff in the meanwhile. Okay, now I'm adjusted in my new city. Now I know my teammates. Now I know what the coaching staff wants from me. So it's a lot more than just, they just sit and do nothing. They are doing a whole lot of processing in the meanwhile off the field, as well as diving into a playbook, getting to know the teammates. It is so important to sit. I'm willing to bet if you looked at the bus rate, just speaking to what you were talking about, you would see that many, many more QBs bust when they are thrown in immediately versus when they sit for a year or sit for at least 10 games or something like that. Yeah, you got your
100%.
Strouds. Yeah, you got your Herberts that come in week 2 after a punctured lung for Tyrod Taylor. Those can happen, but it doesn't mean that's what you should do. So just wanted to say that bit.
It's two-pronged things. It's one is creating a messiah complex for a dude that's coming in to be the savior for your franchise.
And we have seen what that looks like.
Which is, it's setting somebody up for failure. Even if they do succeed, you didn't do a whole lot to make that happen. It's sort of, they pushed through that completely to get to that point, which is huge. Yeah, I would just say you do not want to do that to anyone. It's too much. And then the other thing is that, like, from a developmental standpoint, look at the off seasons. The off seasons have gotten shorter and shorter as far as what it is they're doing when it comes to training camp, the mini camps, everything else to ramp up for the season. The amount of contact that's allowed, everything. It's become something that's so foreign from what it used to be to get you guys prepared. And then there's less preseason games now. Like, there's not the runway to action when the games start counting is very, very short.
Yep, that it is. That extra NFL week. I don't think people realize just what it did, not just for the season itself, but for the offseason. Things start like that now. I mean, we're already a month away from the draft. It's honestly felt like it's flown by. We're pretty close to training camp starting here. Then we go over to C-Wags 40. That's funny. There has been too much just football talk coming from this football team. I'm not used to it. And honestly, none of us are. And again, a shout out to Al Galdi for noticing that last week, where he was just like, by the way, guys, has anyone noticed that we're just talking about football? It was truly, we needed the reminder to be like, oh, right, we can just focus on this. So C-Wags 40 right there with you, bud. Appreciate it.
Yeah, even the uniform talk, the name change stuff is sort of dissipated.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, and let's not even bring that back up. Let's go over to Dave G Comedy 1267. Shout out. This team will be scary this year. They're using their resources to their most potential. Talent at every position is improving. Hard to say that it's not, right? When you see the moves that they've made so far. Now, still a concern with the left tackle, still some concern at corner. It doesn't mean we're solving everything in one offseason, just to be clear. Things take time to build.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, it's culture. That's what the veteran leadership has been brought in for. New coaching staff with their connections. That's year 1 and trying to get the quarterback position right. Year 2, we will start focusing on every single position be rock solid. So I think we're on track right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, this season is more than anything an evaluation of where we are.
Yeah. And we got, I think, only 5 more comments now. We go over to Lobster Larry 6481. Shout out, all caps. We got adults running the show. It is so true. And it feels so good. We go over to Just Be 327. Shout out. What do you guys think about moving up to get Brock Bowers? I think he's the best all-around player in the draft. K-Dot, I'll let you take that one.
All for it.
And there it is. This man loves Brock Bowers.
I love tight end. I love tight ends.
Yeah, you do.
I do. In so many ways. But the idea is, if you have a good one, what they can do for your passing game, in your running game, and everything offensively is insane. And Brock Bowers looks like a fucking beast. Like, if somebody can do that, you solve so many issues on an offense.
It's true. It's true. Then we go over to Rudy Trujillo, 2238. Shout out. Can't just automatically say sit him in reference to the rookie quarterback, because it might be CJ Stroud all over. Whomever might be ready to roll day one. And so we, of course, had just given you our thoughts on how we want them to sit. We will just have to agree to disagree. It is possible that the QB taken is a CJ Stroud, or is, who else had we mentioned? Oh, Justin Herbert, for example. I know it's just 1 week, but it's possible. It's just unlikely. And again, it's very much let's minimize the risk. So even if it is the next CJ, I mean, great. We can wait a few more weeks, in my opinion. Go ahead.
So when that question gets posed, I ask, what is the negative impact of not starting him week one? You lose some games. And I'm okay with it. I'm in year one, I'm good with that. Like, maybe you're not, and maybe that's the whole thing. But like, if you're ready day one, guess what? You'll also be ready week 6, week 8.
Yeah, you're not going to get unready, or it's unlikely that you're going to get unready.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're ready day one, and I can tell you, hey, go familiarize yourself with the playbook more. Hey, this dude looks really ready, so we can give him a clipboard and have him really understand the play calling and the dynamics there. Is that going to make him less ready? No.
Yeah. We've got 3 more comments total. 1 more from Rudy, which we'll conclude with. But first, we'll go over to Sean Adams, 1460. Sean, you've been on the channel a lot. We appreciate you. I just keep telling people that Peters is putting on a masterclass on how to rebuild a team the right way. I understand the complaints that we are only taking, save a few, average players at needed positions. We are taking more than a few Cowboys players, and people are worried about that after what Ron Rivera did in the past. But, and it's a big but, I will show my age by saying this. It's like an old Tom and Jerry cartoon. Shout out Tom and Jerry, where Jerry jumps in a big wheel of Swiss cheese and Tom runs up with corks and starts plugging the holes. That is exactly what Adam Peters is doing. He is throwing bodies at a very bad team, only re-signing a few and letting those that would cost too much go. In my opinion, he is doing this so that when the draft comes, we can draft the best player available instead of drafting for need, which, as far as I am concerned, has not worked in the past decade. I have gone from cautiously optimistic with the new ownership group to literally smiling from ear to ear as this free agency term has progressed. Hail to the Commander. Shout out Sean Adams for that comment. Plenty of optimism to go around. K-Dot, your thoughts on it?
Trust the optimism. I love almost everything that was said. I don't get the Tom and Jerry reference.
You don't like it?
Didn't love it because I don't want us to be Tom. He doesn't win. Is that what it was? Did I misinterpret it?
No, I think it's very much Tom doesn't win in that respect, but plugging the holes still in the moment is a good thing for capturing Jerry.
Saying there's other things you could say, sorry, plugging holes. But
I was trying to be careful.
But right now, in all honesty, all I'm thinking about is big butts and tight ends.
All right, perfect. So then we go over to Jess and because sorry, that was anyway. Shout out Jess Anto. Well, they aren't fucking around this offseason. I originally thought Adam Peters was going to be the Bruce Wayne of general managers. He's been the Doctor Strange of general managers. He's making magic happen. I'm so glad he was hired over the Bears assistant GM. That was Ian Cunningham. We were all wrong on the Dan Quinn hire. K-Dot was not, just for the record. We were all caught up with the shiny new toy in Ben Johnson. I was, absolutely, and failed to realize what we actually needed. The staff he's assembled, the free agent class he has brought in, and his experience is priceless. He and staff's respect and reputation is a huge draw for players to come here. All these players are saying the excitement and energy around this team is electric. I'm not expecting a fast start this season, but I am anticipating that there's going to be a huge leap in play as the players get acclimated into the systems as the season goes on, and this team will finish strong. Our linebackers went from a joke to a direct threat. And just real quick on that, as I deviate from the comment, I noticed some rankings. Some people think we have the best linebacking unit in the league now. Love the Luvu and Wagner hires. I think Jamin Davis is going to be used as a pass rusher and used on both levels. Austin Eckler is not washed. He was injured last season. He's going to be used in the way we've been threatened to use Antonio Gibson in years past. That's what we were supposed to do for the last 4 years. Austin Eckler is a touchdown machine. The center from the Cowboys, Tyler Biadasz, and the left guard from the Chiefs, Nick Allegretti, are highly underrated pickups. They will start immediately. I think Jeremy Chin will have a career resurgence. By the way, if all this happens, holy shit, just to be clear. I think Jeremy Chin will have a career resurgence and will pair up with Defoe to make a great safety tandem. Quan Martin will play nickel. Davis and Forbes, St. Just will be the starting cornerbacks. I like the defensive end signings. The cream will rise to the top in that room. I believe Cleveland Farrell will be a starter with Armstrong. Regardless, Dorrance Armstrong, regardless, there's depth now. Sam Howell's story has yet to be written. He does have a lot of potential, but the front office did right by him and by the team. He's getting a chance to compete while the team has acquired better draft stock. They received more for him than the Steelers and Bears received for Pickett and Fields, both 6th rounders, I believe. Yep. I'm not a Mariota fan. I'd prefer that we had just re-signed Jacoby Brissett, unless Brissett did not want to. To all the Howlers out there, he's going to be on his 3rd offensive scheme in 3 seasons. That is not a good start for any young quarterback. Daniels, Fields, Mac Jones, the list is endless. Sometimes it's better to just start over. Love the show, guys. Appreciate the comment there, Jess. K-Dot, take a victory lap for that one. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Jess is killing as always, man. Yeah, it's happening, guys. Like, that's the thing, is like, we get to a point every year, we do these off-season episodes, we start doing our pick'em, and the amount of times we have to believe or trust in stuff that we haven't seen. We just haven't seen. But there's an idea in the sense of, like, if you look at this team very realistically, there are holes. There are things in which talent-wise you need to upgrade. But if you look at the moves that they've made and the coaching staff that they have, everything looks like a perfect marriage. It looks like exactly what it is you need to do to start taking these next steps. And you've seen the developmental abilities of these coaches when it comes to certain position groups. And those are the position groups in which they're getting that depth. They have young guys. They have dudes who look like they're ready to take the next level with better coaching. This, to me, is just, it's truly a masterclass. This is everything that they are doing is stuff I've come on this podcast. It's stuff that everyone around me has been completely annoyed with. It's the stuff of a true, somebody said earlier that we have adults in the building. It's more than that. We have professionals. And they're doing it the right fucking way. And this is the not fucking around crew is what I'm going to start calling this fucking front office. It's like John Hamm in The Town. This is the not fucking around crew. This is who we got. And this is what you're seeing.
It's a very, very fun time to be a fan. And now we're going to get closer. Now I'm getting excited about the draft. There is one last comment, and we appreciate everybody for the comments, from Rudy Trujillo one more time. We're going to take this to a very quick after the pod, K-Dot, because I think it's an interesting conversation, to say the least. Rudy writes, if the Bears want Jayden Daniels, they will find a way to trade with us. They will find a way to trade with us. Even if they only get a number 2, 3, and next year's 1, that is a win-win for them. I personally want Daniels over Caleb, but I'm not a scout or GM. I just think he has that it factor. I'd rather stay at 2 and hope Adam is a great talent evaluator. My hope is that he was just riding someone else's nuts over in SF, I'm assuming in reference to Trey Lance. Y'all and everyone else is acting like he is the sole reason SF made those picks. He could have been in charge of the Trey Lance trade. We won't know until the season starts. So we're going to go ahead and take that reaction to After the Pod. This was District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I am Amit. That is K-Dot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment, as you always do, and do chime in if you want an entirely separate mailbag episode for the bigger ones. And K-Dot?
Be a District Divided evangelist and share the gospel.
And share this shit. We greatly appreciate you guys. Enjoy your weekend. After the Pod begins right now.
Okay.
One of the things while we were going through Jess Anto's comment was I realized I need an entire bottle of water moving forward for these comment mailbags. My throat was going.
Stay hydrated. Buddy.
Yeah, smart. I just had the coffee over here.
Oh, constantly.
Brilliant comment though. But I wanted to touch on the idea that if the Bears arrive at, we want Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
Do they definitely trade down?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So this goes back to the number one. I don't think Chicago knows what Washington wants to do. I don't think anybody knows what Washington wants to do. I don't know who they think Washington has on the upper end or lower end of their list as far as quarterbacks go.
Right.
The assumption across the league is that everyone still has Caleb Williams number one. And then you are divided across the league about who's a May guy and who's a Daniels guy. Okay.
Right. That's very much where we are.
That's the prevailing theory, right? So the idea for me goes back to that whole Chicago in the sense of Ryan Poles making the decision that it's going to save his ass, but also be potentially the best decision for the team, which is that to pick up Jayden Daniels, number one, would be the box that he puts himself in and the amount of pressure he puts on Jayden Daniels to be that Messiah becomes crazy. It's nuts. The only way you could save face with the Caleb Williams thing is to say, we were bigger on another guy and we also got some other draft compensation. You can sell that. You can't sell, we didn't pick Caleb. He looks like a future Hall of Famer.
Here's the thing. I get what you're saying. I don't see how there's any scenario where they do not take Caleb, because even if they trade down, which would be back-to-back years now, and this time, and this is all under the assumption Caleb is actually like that dude.
No.
And this time, it wasn't Bryce Young, who jury's still out very early in his career, right? But if they miss and like again allow this time, last year was CJ Stroud, and this time it's Caleb Williams, two different QBs, and you traded fan favorite Justin Fields in the process. I don't think there's any recovery for that. So I don't think that they're even allowed to want Jayden Daniels, as crazy as maybe that sounds, or allowed to want Drake Maye. It almost feels like they are just, because of the perception and aura of Caleb Williams, they have to, no matter what. I don't think they're allowed to want anybody else. I think they have to take Caleb. That's where I stand right now.
I mean,
It's crazy.
I think they've backed themselves, but that goes back to my whole thing when it comes to I don't give a fuck as far as what the fan perception is, what the media perception is, what anything perception is. Of course. Go get your guy, right? Go get your guy, develop him right.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my only thing. The only thing that would be malpractice is if they know that there are other guys in that top 3 or 4 that love Caleb Williams and they didn't make the move.
Yeah.
Like that to me would be egregious in the sense that you could get the compensation and still get your guy. To know if they were to do it, if the card comes across in April 25th and it's Jayden Daniels number 1, and then you find out behind the scenes they never picked up the phone to call Washington or New England, you should fire him immediately. There are so many ways in which not picking Caleb Williams is just stepping on a landmine.
Right, exactly. Now, what's intriguing is even the idea that Chicago picks up the phone and calls Washington or New England and goes, hey, what would you give us? The fact that they would even initiate that conversation is intriguing. Like, it is, I'm just thinking about it from, if I'm the general manager,
it would be a mess.
Teams, and I go, I'm sorry, what? You're calling me with that question? Like, that is a very interesting It's part of the poker, I suppose. But like,
no, but it's also a mess. It's a mess because it's like if it leaks that they call.
So that's why I'm saying they are stuck.
Yeah, they're pretty stuck.
I don't see
but
any way.
I would respect the fuck out of it.
Of course, I would too. And this is where ownership, we've talked about it over and over and over, how important it is. Because if ownership is immune to that stuff and goes, Ryan, GM of the Bears, you do what you feel is best. We trust you. Then that other shit doesn't matter.
Right.
Then he's got options.
Right.
But if ownership goes, that's our guy. Like, we just assume you're doing that. And Ryan actually has to push against that to them. Even that conversation's uncomfortable. Like, it gets crazy. So I don't envy Ryan Poles at all. Like, he is actually, I know people are talking about, man, what a short the life itself. But like the position he's currently in, if he didn't actually feel that Caleb was the best person for their franchise, I think it's an intriguing situation. So that's why I wanted to bring this to after the pod, is because this felt like a much longer sort of factors in for us.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
At pick 2. So that was intriguing to me because as I thought about it, when I first read the comment, I was like, wait a minute. I don't think they have a choice. I don't think they can.
Yeah, I just think that they are. It feels like the exact opposite of what Washington's going through, which is a plethora of options. It feels as though they've backed themselves into a situation where there aren't any.
Now, supposedly, it's if you believe people, a Hall of Fame choice that they're stuck with already. There is so much hype around Caleb.
The way that Justin Fields got moved just throws it makes everything muddy to me with all of this. It's I've been talking to some people about the Justin Fields thing, and I was like, I felt like if they didn't make the move, that I would have kept his ass through training camp, or at least to the start of training camp, or I wouldn't. Maybe I'd see if I could trade him on draft day. But I understand.
I think draft day was their best case.
But I understand the locker room aspect of it. But to me, it's like to have both of those guys in the building at the same time is a hard sell for anybody. But you can already see. I forget there was a Chicago player already that told Caleb that had a statement for Caleb Williams about you got to make sure you leave all that Hollywood shit behind. And it's like
that true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like, look, I'm not plugged into Chicago sports. But I was always questioning how true was the love in that locker room for Justin Fields, much as maybe the players didn't know what was going to happen either. So they wanted to be good soldiers for Justin because that's their leader. But how easy would it be to transition? But the more and more you're hearing about it, the more and more it seems as though the Bears have kind of fucked this already.
Yeah.
And the idea is that whoever gets in that locker room, we talk about a Messiah complex or setting them up for the Messiah thing. They've also got to contend with a hostile locker room and winning that locker room over.
It is one of the most fascinating situations in sports in quite some time across all sports, because this was not their number 1 pick. They got hot at the end of last season, right? Justin Fields did too.
And they had a terrible last game.
Now he's gone. New guys coming in. It was already insanely divisive. This pick, just having it is almost like it could work. You would think it works based on every single scout being like, this is the Messiah, to your point. But what a spot to be in, where they've actually built the roster. It was a 7-win team. You would expect that if Caleb is as good as he is, that they would be able to pick up another couple wins and already be a 9-win team. Right? It's not unreasonable to think that based on all the information that we have. But it's also, I've never seen a situation where that team is also stuck. It's I don't know. It is fascinating and greatly affects us.
I will say that RG3 got in some hot water because of how divisive it is. About saying if he was Caleb Williams, he wouldn't want to go.
He would force his way out. Right.
I will say this. If it wasn't for what I think, the Chicago Bears actually had a pretty decent offseason as far as what it is they're doing offensively to put pieces around.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that factor, I'm with you, RG3. Like if it wasn't for that factor, then I am absolutely, if I'm Caleb Williams, I'm like, I don't want to fucking go there.
Yeah.
Like you guys, I've heard what everybody's fucking saying. I see what you guys have done. I see, like, even if I'm Caleb Williams, I'm questioning why it is. Maybe it's just learning from your mistakes, but I'm like, why the fuck did you guys give Justin that and me this?
Oh my
Like, I
gosh.
don't understand
But then you also get into the situation, and this is where I also wanted to explain my Caleb Williams thing because I didn't want it to sound like, oh, this guy, he's weird, and so therefore it can't work. There are a lot of people that are quirky. There are a lot of people that have their, I'd said quirks and can be weird, but they still come across to me, K-Dot, as very, very good leaders. It is just sort of a vibe thing with him where I don't know that I see that. That is just my feeling. So there are a lot of weird, quirky people that are excellent leaders, and I can sort of tell. This is just my own brain interpreting what I hear and stuff like that, right? I look at them and I go, okay, no, but you're strange, but like that's fine. People, I can still resonate with it and really do believe you will be a good leader. Caleb, I'm very intrigued about. I am. That college to, NFL, if adversity hits. Also with the Justin Fields thing and how beloved he was in that locker room, that's not going to help. So it is a super intriguing situation with this type of person who is so talented on the field, but off the field, maybe it's hard to get along with the guy. I don't know.
They kept their head coach, which is another thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah, lame duck year, to RG3's point.
There's some weird shit coming out of Chicago. I just the leadership part of it is it's so different for everybody, and every situation is so different. It's just one of those variables that you just don't know. Like there's I look at Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, and Eli forcing his way out of San Diego. Phillip goes to San Diego. Arguably, Phillip Rivers, as far as just from a quarterback, is probably a better quarterback than Eli Manning ever was. Eli Manning still won
Phillip
2 Super Bowls.
is better. Yeah.
Eli has the Bowls. It's a Super Bowl.
Yes, he
right?
does. Yes, he does.
And the thing with Eli is that I don't think anybody ever looked at Eli as the leader on that team. When he walks in the door, there's already a Michael Strahan there.
That's an excellent point.
There's already dudes that can kind of take shit over. If you look at the UFC Pro Day, who else showed up? Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's there. So like there is an element of like we're getting some of these new guys in, and new guys that are going to be so big fundamentally to who it is we're going to be offensively or defensively, that it's a new fucking day and everybody needs to get adjusted. And if you're not with it, we will oust you. Like there can be an element of that. The only part of it that makes it hard for me to believe that is keeping the head coach. It's like if the head coach is any sort of leadership aspect to him, the idea that he's going to tell the guys that are there that he's got buy-in with, yeah, I'm going with this new crew now, is a harder sell than a new sheriff in town saying, hey, this is... So it's just one of those other variables. You might have good leaders that might get their legs cut out from under them because the head coach isn't that kind of guy. So like Eric Bieniemy, known as a leader of men, right? Eric Bieniemy himself is a leader. I thought of Terry McLaurin as a leader. And what happened in training camp? He cut Terry's legs right out from under him. And now Terry fucking castrated the entire fucking season as far as his leadership ability. We know he has it, but he's not able to express it the way that
awfully
he does.
quiet for Terry this past season.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's
absolutely.
So many variables in that leadership part.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, some dudes will be like, I ain't saying shit to anybody about anything. Watch me on this motherfucking field.
Maybe the next episode we do, because it is a slow period. I'm sure you guys could tell from this episode. Maybe the next episode we do is just sort of Chicago versus Washington in terms of the perceived culture, the coaching staff, all that jazz, and just seeing what it looks like. And then the type of landing spot each one is. I think it would be an intriguing conversation.
I think it would be too. I want to, before this season starts, I want to have a quarterback episode. I want to talk about quarterback psychology. I want to talk about quarterback rooms.
That sounds
I want to
great.
talk about leadership. I want to talk about that. I think that is one of the most interesting things for a position that everybody talks about being the most important in sports that is so high profile. Everyone has an opinion, and yet everyone is so fucking wrong all the time about it.
All the time. Yeah, we'll certainly have that conversation, but we have hit our hard stop. So we will see you guys later. Enjoy the weekend. Take it easy.
Bye, everybody.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.